go get a lottery card or something today because you won 2 times. And then Kara, is it Special? She's the CISO over at Children's Mercy Hospital. You won $50 for filling that out as well. So, Kara, where are you? Are you in the room? Where are you, Kara? Oh, okay. I'll have to come talk to you. I'll have to come talk to you. I'm always looking for females to sit on our panels, be speakers. It is a big mission of mine. I sit on the board of WeSees in St. Louis, and I can never find enough women to sit on our panels and speak. So, ladies out there, please never be shy. I know it's intimidating to fill these spots that I'm looking for around the country. I also have a podcast that we're getting ready to relaunch in June, always looking for anyone, male, female. You know, I never want to leave out our male audience. I just want you all to encourage the females in your office to come out to these kind of events because it is very intimidating. It's still, you know, I've been doing this for 20 plus years and it's still not enough. It's not as diversified as I'd like to see it. So thank you for all the women that are here today. We have women in cyber, women in security, and we have the WeSees being represented today. So we just want to always advocate and stand behind that. So thank you, ladies. Okay, let me move on to our keynote speaker today. All right. Today, I have Bill Kim, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at the Security Bank of Kansas City. After being automated out of a 2-decade career in radio and television, Bill spent some time acquiring multiple vendor certifications and has enjoyed the last 26 years in several aspects of IT. If I could ask everyone to please, you'll have plenty of time. We're going to have a half-hour break after this. Thank you. Anyway, back to Bill. He's enjoyed the last 26 years in several aspects of IT security, compliance, and regulatory network, leading the federal compliance efforts for municipal electric utility, provided a solid foundation for what would become the bridge between functional IT and security, and adhering to its standards, guidelines, and recommendations. As a CISO for Security Bank of Kansas City, Bill appreciates his team as they continually monitor for risk and vulnerabilities, behavioral changes, abnormalities, and chasing all the ghosts. Today, he is going to speak on risky business, and what does that mean? He's about to tell you, so welcome to the stage, Bill.
Water, coffee, notes, just in case. Good afternoon, I'm Bill Kim. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for Security Bank of Kansas City, an equal housing lender, member FDIC. The information presented in this next few minutes is only mine. It is my opinion. My company doesn't endorse it. If I've ever worked with you, you won't endorse it. My family won't endorse it. Nobody endorses it. It's just my opinion. We do have a very important topic. Oh, there's our bank right there, securitybankkc.com. If you need anything, ranked the strongest large bank in Kansas City again. So there you go, check it out. You've not heard about this topic yet. I know you haven't, and so I wanted to bring it to your attention today because it is so very, very important. Now, AI can be used to create dark and negative experiences. Here's an example. Through trial and error, I often fail, yet rise again despite the pain. No easy out, no chance to bail, for strength is forged in loss and gain. The world may maim, leave spirits frail, but hope still flickers in its lair. Through sorrow's song, through mournful wail, we wipe away the darkest stain. All right? But now AI can be used to create positive and uplifting experiences. Here's an example. Upon the field so wide and fair, they toil with hope and earnest care. Through trials fierce they seek the praise, where every step their courage stays. With effort bold they strive to gain, and find the strength in aid's refrain. They press ahead, their will maintain, through storms of doubt, through winds of pain. See, AI can be used to create positive and negative. In fact, all of these words are made with AI. Look at that. Maintain, M-A-I-N-T-A-I-N, maintain. And trail, fair, all of these words are made with AI. I don't know why we're afraid of AI. Without AI, we couldn't even use these words. And that's my take on AI. I hope you enjoyed it. I went back one. Now my topic, risky business. Or why I created a risk outlook that took me places I didn't want to go, because you just don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know. And I hope this doesn't get distracting. I trust you guys. I'm going to put my notes down. I'm putting my notes down. We could talk about hash files, and we could talk about AI, which we've done, and we could talk about quantum cryptography. It's a slow one because it churns so many cycles. We could talk about zero trust, and we could talk about multi-layer security. We could talk about the security onion. We could talk about the security cabbage or the cyber zucchini, but we won't talk about any of those things. We've had some great speakers this morning, and there are more this afternoon that will cover all of these topics in depth and with much more skill than I can. It has been said, those who fail to plan, plan to fail. I don't think that's true. Those who fail to plan are caught off guard and surprised and devastated. They're scrambling for the very next thing because they didn't plan to fail. March 6th, 2017. That's the Oak Grove 70 truck stop. There's a Wendy's. Used to be a Dairy Queen in there, but it's folded now. But here's an old picture. On March 6th, 2017, we'd gone in town for a band concert. Our kids were in band and choir. We went in town, and you go out for ice cream after the concert. That's what you do in our town. And we were watching the forecast, spring day in the Midwest, and it looked all right. And then suddenly, we started getting some alerts. And the counter at the Wendy's and the Dairy Queen, they flipped the lights off, and they said, "We are heading to the break area for safety." What? And so we looked outside, and it looked a little bit dark, checked our phones, whatever. And so our in-laws were with us. They were staying at a hotel across town, and so we sent them off, and we started driving out of town. And as we were driving north and the storm was approaching, we saw all of the power go out in our town in the rearview mirror. And so we're driving, just getting where we can. And we got home, and the next day, this was just one of many examples of 483 homes and 10 businesses that were completely leveled by that tornado. Now, when that happened, we had plenty of warning. And there were a lot of people that had warning. Thankfully, they had warning. And one of our friends was walking down the basement to her safe shelter. And as she closed the door behind her and the house above her lifted off the frame as she was halfway down the stairs. She was fine. Her husband was fine. Their house was gone. Their cars were gone. She didn't grab her ID. She didn't grab her keys. She didn't grab anything. But she and her husband were safe. And after they made the assessment that they were safe, they just looked around. What can we do? Well, they worked for companies where they were pretty important. And those companies had to make adjustments because those people were not going to be there for the next several days without clothes, without a driver's license or a car. And so they had to make some adjustments. We've had some more recent examples. October 2024, North Carolina, after Hurricane Helene, who knew that 500 miles inland, you would have record 1,000-year floods affecting all of these storm-damaged roads and houses and businesses and supply chains and culverts. These are a few more. I'm not going to read through them all, but the wildfires in Los Angeles. There are a lot of houses that are hurricane safe, that are fire safe, And there were a couple of homes after the fires in Los Angeles where the guy was standing out front of his still standing home. And people said, man, you ought to feel pretty lucky. He said, well, put on a hazmat suit and I'll take you inside. The 3 days of intense heat had cooked everything in his apartment or in his house. And because the structure was fire safe, it didn't burn. It just cooked everything inside. And because it was sealed and fire safe, none of the toxins could get out. So his house is still standing, but it's worthless because he'll never be able to remediate the toxins inside. But we can build hurricane-safe houses and fire-safe houses. A lot of headlines that show things that we need to prepare for. But here is the point today. Plan to lose everything. Absolutely plan to lose everything. And not just personally, but your business. Both, either. We have insurance policies, and those insurance policies will cover all of the replacement costs for materials and the structural things, but what about your family pictures? Have you digitized them? Are they online to a place where you can get to them? And if you can't get to them online, do you have a safe hard copy of your precious pictures and the videos? My goodness, we have pictures of our kids, and we were just transitioning from the Super 8 to the smaller cartridge, and have like 94 cameras and all these videos. We dubbed them to DVD. DVDs don't last forever, by the way. And so all of these things that are critical to us, do we have backed up and safe? What about your heirloom items? Can you live without those? And this is a personal example, but I'm giving you this example because in a business, you have things that are just as precious to you, your critical assets. So you need to determine your risk appetite in your business. You need to look at your loss projections. And everybody does a business impact analysis, right? How many of you are at the place in your business where you have input to your business impact analysis? Okay, just a handful. So a lot of you may not be at the place where you have that level of responsibility in your company, but you might ask, just in case, hey, have we run a risk analysis and a business impact analysis? What's our return to operation? There are a lot of risk calculations. Pick one. Pick any one. I'm not going to recommend one. There are a lot of them. Google them or ask the robots to help you. Oh, sorry. When I say robots. Okay. Now I'm safe from the AI. Because they've got all these antennas. They're everywhere. They are listening. Okay. Do you think we're safe? I think we're safe. All right. Whew. Because you never can be too careful. But use any risk calculation and find a framework, whether it's NIST or COVID or ISO. Find a framework. Use a framework. Find a security framework and adhere to it. Now, we've got a lot of statistics here. Ransomware recovery. More than 34% of organizations will take over a month to recover from a ransomware event. What's in your planning? When you do your tabletops, you sit down around, it's like, oh yeah, we had ransomware. Where somebody clicked a phishing mail, we got ransomware. And your server guys say, oh man, we back up in 2 days. We've got our 3-2-1 backup. We've got 3 copies. We've got 2 different media. One's immutable, stored off-site. We're good. We can restore from backup. Wow. Good luck, man. Talk to your cyber insurance company and see what their timeframes are for their forensic analysis. Talk to anybody that actually does the recovery and ask them, how long does it really take to recover from an actual full-blown ransomware infestation in your company? Because you can't just restore. You just can't. Downtime, it's going to cost $300,000 an hour for a lot of companies. Disaster recovery planning, only 54% of organizations have a company-wide disaster recovery plan. Do you know if your company has one? I mean, most people do have something. Something. Small business resilience, while it's available, the U.S. Small Business Administration still provides guidance on recovery planning. Go online and look it up. It's almost like assembling your go bag. I don't know if you have a go bag at home, something right by the front door that has copies of your driver's license number, your credit card numbers, the phone numbers to call if you lose everything, who to call to restore, copies of your critical keys, all of those things in your go bag, a couple of protein bars, some water, aspirin, extra set of contact lenses, and any prescriptions you have. Oh, you don't keep those? Maybe you should. And do the same for your business. Because if you need to evacuate, if you need to leave your business, or if your business is not approachable for some reason, you need to make sure that you've got a go bag for your company. Now, we've moved from a prevention perspective to a recovery perspective. And there are a lot of talks this morning, there will be one this afternoon that kind of echoes this. But we're in a recovery perspective. And in a natural disaster, you can't prevent earthquakes. Well, unless you watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Then you know. You can prevent earthquakes. If you need to know how, ask me later. And you also can prevent damage from some buildings with specific building codes and techniques, and you can keep those from happening. They won't affect you negatively. But if your data compromise is due to ransomware, what are you going to do? You're just going to pull the hard drives? What about the CPU? Wait, those can be infected? Yeah. Sometimes it's not as easy as just restoring. Are your logs sufficient? When you're doing a forensic analysis, are your logs sufficient to show how far back the compromise occurred? When did it happen? How far back do I need to go to be safe on my recovery? I worked for an MSP several years ago, and one of our clients was a fire station. You had 6 locations, and not gigantic, but still very important. And one evening I got a call, hey, we've got a red screen. And my first question was, is it on the 911 system or is it on the business system? It's business, okay. That was okay. We kept 911 separate from the business. Red screen, I said, don't unplug the power, unplug the network cable, we'll take a look. We started noticing a few more the next day. At a certain point, about 350 computers were red screen. No problem. We had a Dell Aperture backup system, and once we found patient 0, cleared everything, did all of our good forensic instruction, and followed our playbook, and we started restoring. 2 days into the restore, red screen, red screen, red screen, red screen. Patient 0 wasn't patient 0. Patient 0 was patient 1. Patient 0 was a contractor who came in and plugged in her laptop to the training center twice a week. She had a red screen, and she thought, well, it would go away on its own. It did not. Anyway, once we found that, it took 10 days to restore fully, and that was after verifying that there were no remnants. And this was probably 10 or 12 years ago. This was back before when you could just pull a hard drive and restore from backup. It took a while. And because the company I worked for had to make a living, we charged what we charged to do our job. And the fire department thanked us for our business, and at a few days afterwards, we no longer had them as a customer, not because we did anything wrong, but because we were too expensive for their recovery effort. They did not build in a recovery effort into their budget planning. Build in those costs to your budget planning. We've got everybody poking at your doors and windows, everybody trying to kick something in, and people here are experts at who's kicking what and when, and they'll tell you, and they can show you the data. And you go next door and you ask them, show me who these people are. And you saw an example earlier of the ransomware as a service kit that you can get. You just go online, boom, I'm in. How do you stop that? Well, if it's a physical disaster, it might take some time. My corporate office is in an area that has had a number of issues with bridges. I'm in KCK. And so the I-70 viaduct, Lewis and Clark, has been closed one direction, then closed the other direction. It's like, fine, I'll just go around. Except the Central Street Bridge is closed. Well, okay, I'll just go around. Except the other bridge and the other bridge. Can you get to your building? This isn't even natural disaster. This is just regular, everyday highway stuff. If you were in a natural disaster, could you get to your facility? If you can't, do you have a backup facility ready to go? Oh, everybody's got their laptops, will just work from home. Maybe, But if you have an operation that doesn't allow that sort of thing, or it's not convenient, do you have a warehouse space or just a meeting room or someplace where you can gather together as a team? If nothing else, just a triage, just to get together, have one central place so you can start working on your recovery. If it's a data event, how much do you take offline for your forensic investigation? Can you trust your backups? What happened in March 2020? COVID. I was at a conference and the cruise ship had just been docked and just been told they were sequestered. There were 2,200 passengers on board, 719 got infected, 12, 15, 20 people died. On that cruise ship, there were CEOs and executives and very important people of companies that couldn't get off, couldn't communicate with their companies. I mean, there were cell phones, there was some spotty, but a lot of these folks didn't take laptops with them on vacation. Who takes a laptop on a cruise ship? And if you do, my goodness. Go on vacation. Go on vacation for real. But as we were discussing this and hopeful that it wouldn't actually affect our day-to-day operation, because thankfully it was still not in the United States that we knew. We did some tabletops. We did a little discussion. What if we needed to shelter in place in our own company? What if during the business day there was an event where you then had to lock down in your company, in your place of business? Now, some of you work in very large places. You've got break rooms, you've got food stored, you've got all kinds of things. And some of you work in mom and pops, and man, that's tough. So keep a handful of protein bars in your desk. Keep some bottled water, if not for the whole group, at least for yourself. I mean, look out for number one, but plan in case you have to lock down. At least you'll be the last man standing. You got a good story to tell. But there were a lot of disaster recovery and business continuity plans that were updated shortly after the start of COVID. How many of you worked for companies that did panic buys on laptops? Yeah. And Best Buy was like, nope, can't do it. Micro Center, nope, can't do it. Some other company, just pick one, you know. Everybody, Kohl's had laptops. We were getting them from everywhere. Plan for these. Who would have thought that we would have a virus like this? In 2019, who thought that? In 2018? Well, you have your pandemic exercise and your tabletops. You plan for that. Did we plan for this scope? Did we? I don't think so. We didn't. Business continuity and disaster recovery plans need to be extreme and stupid. Think about the things that'll never happen, ever. Put them in your plan. Are all of your spare keys hanging on that really cool decorative key holder right inside your door? I'm blinking here. Why did I do that? Did I do that? Did you do that? There we go. We have a very nice decorative key holder right inside our door, and all of our keys are right there. And if anything ever happens to our house, all of our spare keys are gone. I have a nice safe in the basement. I don't know why I don't put the spare keys in the safe, because I don't want to have to go to the safe and unlock the safe to get the spare key. Put your spare keys in the safe. If it's important to you, keep it secure. Backup recovery and planning include people. In your backup plans, do you have your key roles covered, like the executives on the cruise ship that couldn't get off and couldn't do their regular role in their company? Like my friend and her husband, who were very important people in their company and couldn't go to work for 2 or 3 weeks? Do you have that in your disaster recovery plans? Do you have those roles covered? What about your customer expectations? Your customers might think, you know, they're really solid. They'll be okay. And we'll hang out. We'll wait around for them. They'll come back around. We'll be fine. Your asset accounting, do you know what all your critical assets are? And we're going to get to that on a couple more slides. Supply chain disruptions. North Carolina, do you know how many businesses couldn't get anything because those travel routes were through those affected areas? Not just even the recovery for the affected areas, but the businesses around that were still intact, they couldn't get their supplies because the roads were gone. You need to include everybody you can, like your frontline administration staff. How many of you are, I can't put this delicately, How many of you are high enough in your food chain that you don't know your frontline people by name? You don't have to answer. Do you know your custodial staff? Do you know your custodial staff by name? If they're rentals, you may not. But if they're people that you work with every day, do you know your custodial staff? We were at a band competition and I saw this on a t-shirt. Trust me, I'm a custodian and I know things. It is absolutely true. Your custodians know more about your company than you do. They know the ins and outs. They know who comes and goes. They know the schedules. They know where things are. If you need the protein bars, they've got them. They know where they're hidden. They know who keeps what in their desk. They shouldn't, but they do. But keep that in your plan. Know who the important people are. You might be critical in your organization because your title, and that's great. Congratulations. But the company can probably do without you if you've done it well. If your playbooks are all written very effectively and thoroughly, hopefully your company can do without you. Your staff can grab your playbooks and just operate and just be fully functional. Plan for disruption. Plan for a lot of disruption. My trip home from my corporate office is 32 miles one way. Should be a straight shot down I-70, but I-70 now has construction. And if I can make it across the viaduct and get to downtown, immediately out of downtown, I'm faced with construction. And people don't know how to merge yet. I'm hopeful. Does everybody know how to merge? Everybody? It's a zipper merge. You go, you go, you go, you go. We have a lesson. It doesn't work that way in disasters. If you've ever been in an evacuation, people try to be as courteous as they can, but still you're looking out for number one. You just need to get out. Oh, they're coming down the open lane. You want to get in? No, you're not. Be courteous, but plan for it. Plan for disruptions. Plan for lots of downtime. You don't have a return to operation. You don't know when that's going to be. Be very realistic with your recovery estimations. I mean, the media is coming around. Hey, we heard you were affected by a thing. When do you think you're going to be back in operation? Oh, a couple of days. Server guy said, we got backups. When you're doing your planning, talk to your cyber insurance. They've done this before. Talk to their forensics teams. When you have your certification, on the back page, there is a number of people to call. The number for your forensics team is on there. Call them. Say, I don't have a cyber event right now. I'm planning for one because we're going to have one. I have only one thing. I got people in the audience that can attest to this. I have one thing on my whiteboard. Not if, but when. That's the only thing I have on my whiteboard. Dry erase board. Chalkboard. Not if, but when. It's going to happen. Talk to your cyber insurance carrier. Make sure that you know what they cover. Make sure you know how helpful they will be. And if you don't have cyber insurance, I think somebody at an earlier presentation said he could help you get hooked up, because I don't sell it. There are consequences and regrets for these unplanned events. You ever seen regret in risk planning? Like one of the 12 stages of grief or whatever? There's 5 stages. Now there's a new 12 stage because grief keeps growing. But regret is a step you should include in your planning. What if we missed something? What if we didn't cover everything? I mean, our plan looks good. We've done the tabletops. Have you? You got to make sure that you've got everything covered. So the 5 typical steps in risk planning include identify your risk. That's a simple one. But you don't know. Physical risk, environmental risk, cyber risk. There are all kinds of potential risks. Can you list them all? You can't list them all practically. So identify the risk, type of risk, not the specific, like somebody decided to put a bunch of dry Jell-O in the HVAC system and then pour water and the Jell-O expanded. Who would have ever thought of that? Well, you're not going to put Jell-O as a risk. But having your HVAC system unavailable, that is a risk. Analyze the risk, and this is where your probability and your impact are determined. So when you're looking at your charts and you've got your red and your green and they get bigger and more important and scarier the further you get on your risk chart, this is where you analyze those risks and you look at the chart and you think, okay, what's the likelihood that this will happen? And if it does happen, what's the impact if it, Risk response, this is where you have your mitigation strategies, and the people next door, a lot of vendors have these recovery and mitigation options, and they're great to help you plan these things. Can your risk be mitigated? hopefully. Can you accept the risk? I mean, you may say, like gravity. I don't like gravity. I don't like gravity, but I have to accept it as a thing. Sometimes you just have to accept risk, whether you like it or not. Implement your strategies and then monitor and review their effectiveness through testing and testing and testing. Likelihood is the tricky part of all this. Nobody expected 500 miles in on the North Carolina 1,000-year flood. We're far enough inland, we're not going to be affected by the hurricane. We might get some rain. 1,400 landslides during that. 57,000 acres were burned in the Los Angeles fires. So develop a comprehensive plan. I'm not going to read all, well, I actually am. I'm not a slide reader, but these are important. Develop a comprehensive plan. This is where you get your recovery time objective or your return to operation. We've got so many repeat acronyms that can mean everything. RTO could mean, it was a record label years ago too. You need to identify your critical systems, and this is critical to your critical risk analysis. Do you know what's important to your company? All of your systems, not just the computer. Yeah, we need some laptops and a server. As long as we've got internet, we're good. Find everything that's critical and go to each department and ask them, what can you live without? If you can live without it, it's not critical. Implement redundancy. We've got our pictures stored on a very large external hard drive that is kept in the safe, and that is backed up to the cloud, and we have pictures printed in case we can't get to the hard drive or nothing works or we can't get to the cloud. We still have our pictures. Man, our kids were cute. You got to keep those pictures. Regularly test and update. And regularly means not just once a year because your compliance says you have to. Regularly test it. If the landscape shifts or changes, you need to make sure that you've got everything covered. Ensure clear communication. Who are your key critical people that you need to communicate with in the event of an event? Make sure you've got upline and downline communication. You've got everybody's phone number stored in your phone and written on a piece of paper. Maybe laminate it. And I found that if you use clear packing tape, it makes a nice laminate. You don't have to get it professionally done at Xerox. Secure your data and cybersecurity measures. Make sure you've got everything covered. Can you have everything covered? No. That's why the other slide said plan to lose everything. And document and store your plans securely. Make sure you've got them online. Make sure you've got your playbooks printed out, kept in old-fashioned 3-ring binders, somewhere where you can get to them. Maybe in a safe deposit box. I don't know if we're still doing that. We're phasing our safe deposit boxes out, so maybe just get a safe. Determine about your critical assets, more about your critical assets. What makes them critical? Can they become compromised? Can they? The example in an earlier presentation on just a regular camera. If it can connect, it can be compromised. Can it be replaced quickly? If it's critical, do you have a backup? Do you have a secondary? Our daughter works for a minor league ball team down in Arkansas, and the scoreboard, the big media board, wasn't working one day because after a storm, one of the transformers had blown. They were able to get a transformer. It's not one of the big pole-type transformers, so they were able to get a secondary transformer. But they had a full game go without any score, no pitch count, no nothing, and none of the cute ads, and they couldn't do the video interviews and all of that. So they lost a lot of the part of the experience just from that one transformer that blew. They didn't have a backup. If you have a good generator, that's great. What if it goes down? Do you have enough fuel for your generator? Do you have, all of those things that you have to ask, what if? This is our backup. What if it's not sufficient? Our generator is our power backup. What if we run out of fuel? Do you have a relationship with your fuel provider where you can just call them directly and say, hey, we're about to run low. Please come and give us some more. Because everybody's going to be calling and asking the fuel provider to give them more fuel for their generator, unless you've got solar, which is great unless it's a cloudy day. Does your asset require input from outside sources? Let's say your compromise is because your SD-WAN provider is compromised. They're down. Your circuits are down. They're unavailable. If you need outside input, can you get it? Well, Put that in your plan. Can you get another service provider on the fly? Let's say your service provider, the one that you're hoping is going to protect you and keep you on your recovery effort, maybe they're not available. Can you get a secondary? Well, gosh, what if it compromises our relationship with our primary? It's your business, man. You've got to look out for you. Have you calculated the cost per minute? There was one comment about a Ford assembly line where if one of the robots goes down, they know how much per minute it costs them if that robot goes down. Well, a lot of other examples, back in my radio days, we calculated the cost per minute of every 30-second slot on the air. How much were we making and how much did it cost us if we weren't? We worked for a satellite agency and had stations coast to coast. We were the uplink site, and I was the director of operations and had to formulate a plan to combat silence, because silence is not golden. Silence costs you money when you're in radio. So I talked to one of our satellite vendors, one of the engineers that worked on our uplink receivers. And I said, I know we've got a way that we can determine the amount of silence and what happens during that. You can have different events inside the receiver triggered. And short version of a horribly long story, we created a thing called a silence eliminator. When 5 to 7 seconds or whatever threshold we determined was calculated by the receiver, I'm not receiving any satellite input. It dialed out on a landline, because this is back in the 90s. We had a landline. It dialed back to the uplink site, and programming continued. Since a lot of our stations were AM anyway, it didn't really matter. If it was over a phone line, it sounded about the same. So, and we were still making money. But the point of that is we calculated, we knew how much it would cost if we were not broadcasting. And we didn't spend that much to overcome that cost. And it was a nice way to keep us on the air. Have you calculated how much it will cost when you're not doing business? Oh, I forgot I did that one fancy thing with the slide. With your business, can you afford to lose everything? Well, that's not even the question. The question is, how do we recover when we lose everything? You don't imagine that one day your company building or your staff or your route to work or your supply chain or your software or your whatever is critical, it's just not there. What do? Don't assume anything. In your plans, be extreme and be goofy, but be thorough. There's a jewelry store in Colorado, been in business for 40 years. They were everybody's jeweler. They did the class rings for everybody. Everybody did weddings. They got their engagement rings. Everybody went to that store. And they were loved by everybody in the community, except for the criminal thugs that came in town and decided to rob them. They were robbed. It's a smash and grab. Next day, called it in. Insurance covered the cost. They rebuilt, secured their doors and all that. A couple years later, they were broken into again. This time, a car ran into, and it was a real smash and grab. And they had insurance, and they were able to recover from that. But the last one, last year, the thieves were able to disable the security system, no cameras, no alarms, and they got in and they literally cleaned them completely out. And they took even like the coffee maker, they took things that were not even jewelry. They took everything of value. Family came in the next day, everything's gone, called their insurance company. Well, something had happened. Their carrier had changed and their policy had changed. And somewhere in all their stacks of mail, they just didn't get that their policy had changed. I don't know how that happens, but how many stacks of mail do you have at your company? It's like, yeah, I'll get to it. Oh yeah, it's from them. It's just another, you've been breached notice. You just put that in the pile. So they didn't read that. And their insurance carriers, apparently run by jerks who didn't call them at one point to say, oh, we've been bought out and the new company doesn't have theft as a rider on your insurance. So this company that had been in business for 40 years is gone. They're gone. They can sell the building and get some money out of that, but their inventory, Their reputation is intact. Everybody feels sorry for them, but they can't do anything because they just didn't plan to lose everything and not be able to recover. That's something you need to do. Know the risk of complete loss or failure. Plan for it. And plan for it in epic ways. Plan for your CEO to be on a cruise ship on a 10-day cruise. And he comes back and he's like, oh, we can't get off the cruise ship because you're going to be sequestered for 2 months because blah, blah, blah. Will it ever happen? Gosh. Plan for your plan to fail. Plan for your backup plan to not work. That's why you do the tabletops. That's why you ask the questions. And when you ask your server guys, how many of you are the server guys? How many of you are the infrastructure? How many of you are the meat and potatoes of your company? You're the truth teller right there. If somebody comes to you and says, all right, I'm going to delete an entire directory, you say, it's fine, we got backups. I'll just restore it. Okay, I'm deleting it. Does anybody ever do that for your tabletop? No, you talk about it. Does anybody, well, yeah, we've had users, it's like, hey, I accidentally deleted everything. And so you do. It's kind of a disaster recovery plan that you put into play and you recover and you get your data. So you can do that on a folder by folder and a profile by profile, and you can restore Active Directory and you can do all of that. Can you do that for your entire company in a matter of minutes, hours, or days? What is your recovery, your return to operation? Click. Here's a quote from me. Those who fail to plan to lose, lose in panic. But those who plan to lose well, communicate appropriately, and recover better. Keep it if you want, but please attribute it to me. I thought it was clever. I got an email from one of our executives the other day talking about this latest quantum cryptography algorithm hack, CPU being able, you can read the hard drive lights with a telescope from 3 miles and get the password. Don't ever type your password on a Zoom call, for goodness sake, ever. He said, what are we doing to address all these? I said, there will always be threats. There will always be risks. But we conduct our business to the best of our ability, the safest and most secure, communicating our expectations to our employees as well as to our customers. We plan for disruptions and we plan for failures. We can't cherry pick our response to the new threats because there are just so many. But we will respond the same way to every threat by confirming appropriate access to our systems, by alerting on anomalous behaviors, by restricting access through policy and configuration, and turning off the lights when we leave for each night. And that's all we can do. And that's all any of us can do. But plan. Plan for what you don't know. Plan for the people that are kicking in your door in all kinds of new and terrible ways. Get your tinfoil hats. These are like $3 on Amazon. Get these. Get them. Tinfoil does not block government channels, by the way, but it will stop the robots. Thank you. I appreciate your time this afternoon, but remember, we are just one giant solar flare away from all of this going away anyway. So please, eat, drink, and use multi-factor authentication. Thank you. I don't have a real product that I pushed or anything, but I'd be glad to answer any questions. If you have any questions like why on earth were you here and what on earth did we just hear? So we've got a microphone coming, okay? And I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee.
Several people have mentioned insurance today, and a lot of times I hear people say, oh, well, we've got cyber insurance, so we'll be covered. Don't they have to do something special so that they are covered?
A lot of cyber insurance companies want you to go through a certification process, like being PCI compliant or following a certain set of standards, like the NIST CyberSecurity Framework 2.0 or ISO 27001 certification. So you might want to check with your cyber insurance to make sure that you meet the criteria to be covered for this event, this event, this event, and list out specific events. Is it ransomware? Is it malware? Is it whatever the event may be? So talk to them and make sure you understand.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? A lot of great vendors next door. If you haven't had the conversation, I mean, yeah, get the swag and all that, and the socks. My goodness, when did socks become a thing? It's a great thing. But we got socks galore. But if you have any questions on any of this, they all have the solution, except for losing everything. And so this is on you. You have to plan that yourself. Please plan to lose everything. And when you do, and you've got that plan that you pull out, and you've got your notebook, your 3-ring binder, the one thing, and people say, why on earth would you have that? And when you do have it and you pull it out, they're going to be like, man, you are golden. I hope it never happens to you. Not if, but when. Thank you.